All right, welcome to the program. Charles Moscowitz here. Thanks for joining me, everyone. And I am joined by Dr. Cordie Williams. Dr. Williams is constitutional advocate, known as Megaphone Marine, decorated Marine, holistic neurological chiropractor, the founder of 1776 Forever Free, and he's a California resident. Cordie, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Charles. It's an honor. Really appreciate it, brother.
All right. You have, or you're participating in an event this weekend at Sacramento State House in California. Reopen the state. So let's start by talking about that.
Well, that was last weekend. I was at the Capitol, and what we were talking about, I was with Brandon Strzok in the Walkaway campaign,
Mhm.
and we were just talking about like honestly, he's really guided and kind of his mission is get people over from the left to kind of more of a patriotic, kind of red, white, and blue understanding of hey, we should be about freedom. We should be about standing for the American flag. And very similarly, that's what 1776 Forever Free is about. I started this organization after I had a video go viral. And we just really think that America is craving leadership. They're craving direction. They're craving ethical morality back into our culture and back into our society. And what we hope to do is really look at what we can unite people on, which we believe is patriotism. Like this is the greatest country in the world, and instead of creating more divisiveness about what we can agree on, we can all agree we're all American. We all bleed red, white, and blue. So this weekend I'll actually be speaking in Ventura with David Harris Jr., a guy named Stephen Davis, who Turning Point he's been doing a lot of Turning Point stuff with Charlie Kirk. This guy, Stephen Davis, is known as Hulk MAGA, and a host of other speakers that are just trying to move the needle on freedom, Charles, like you are, 100%.
Cordie, you're in California, and
Yeah,
to the rest of the country, it looks like California has really almost fallen off of the left wing precipice. You know what I mean?
that's because that's true, right?
Of course,
Totally.
I'm in Boston, so we're not a lot better. But
I
but
wonder where that cute accent was from.
yeah,
I was
well,
saying this guy, he's East Coast. I love him already.
I'm an East Coast, part of the East Coast is Eastern Seaboard liberal establishment, right? Um, but I buck the trend here.
There
However, as do you. But California in particular seems to be so mismanaged by the liberal Democrats and by the left. Not even before the coronavirus, but during the coronavirus, very much so. Putting COVID positive people in nursing homes like Mario Cuomo did, or Andrew Cuomo, to maybe, which resulted in a ginning up of the numbers, and which is extremely immoral. While at the same time, spending a lot of money on on helping illegal aliens and other policies which really seem to be contrary to the interests of the people of the state. Um, is there a possibility that there could be a turnaround in California this year? I mean, is there any inkling that people are beginning to get up and wake up and become woke in the literal sense and reject, or as Brandon Straka says, walk away from this kind of rotten, top heavy establishment in your state?
Well, it's interesting when we talk about Frodo 1 or Frodo 2, or as I affectionately call the third brother in that band, Adolf Newsom. When we talk about those people, I think in these states, whether it be New York, whether it be, the state you're in, the state I'm in, I think there's differences in all of them for sure about how much people are waking up, how much people really do see through the hashtag fake news, hashtag fear porn, as I affectionately call it. In California in particular, I was talking to a friend about this the other day who's diehard conservative like us. And we were just saying that, out of all the other areas in the country that are kind of fighting back and pushing back, California, I mean, literally, Charles, if we don't have 2 or 3 rallies a weekend somewhere in California, like it's a miracle since this whole thing started. I mean, you really get this sense that there are, as my friend Joy Villa would say, Trumplicans like everywhere, and patriots and red, white, and blue people coming out everywhere. And so I feel really good about California in the sense I feel really good there's enough people that can change this. The question would be, are they going to stick around through the tyranny? Right? Because I mean, I don't know what the statistic is. I don't have that in front of me, but I can just tell you from my own experience. I probably have 5 to 10 personal friends that have left California in the 7 years that I've lived here. So it's
So,
fascinating.
so there's definitely at least some movement on the street, and I think that I mean, I guess I'd have to ask you to address the statistics which show that the virus is increasing in your state, and you know, as patriots, what do we say to that? How do we ask our public officials to manage that in an appropriate context, as opposed to maybe these kind of authoritarian blanket demands that all schools stay closed, including those in districts that don't have the virus, and these kind of blanket pronouncements, which are very constitutionally questionable at best.
Well, I'm already a weirdo, Charles, because I'm 40 years old. I was in the Marine Corps. Now I'm a holistic doctor. Okay. I'm the only conservative in my family. Okay. So anybody that watches this that really knows me is not going to be too shocked by what I'm about to say. Anybody that doesn't might write me off as a quack, but viruses don't kill people. Compromised immune systems do. Okay. And that's
Mm,
just reality. We've had viruses for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Have you ever been told to wear a facial condom on your face? No.
right.
Have you ever been told to be on house arrest at your house? Like, why don't, I mean, look at the rates of cancer and heart disease. Why don't you and I hide in fear in our homes, let the economy tank, and we just won't feed our families? What a great solution, right? It's insane. This whole thing is being driven, in my opinion, by the liberal media. It's being driven by the deep state. And I don't think I'm too off base from a lot of Republicans that are deep in the party that say the same thing. They might not publicly come out and say it, but they can feel that there's a virus, no question about it. But how come, Charles, in 2012, when 224,000 people died of SARS in the Obama administration, it was crickets? There was no, you didn't get on Fox News, and I love Fox, right? Well, I love Hannity, Laura, Tucker, those couple that are still conservative, right, within Fox.
Hmm.
But you see this lottery ticket number of the infected cases, but in all areas, to include California, you look at the death mortality rate, it's still not even close to the common flu, right? I mean, this is a flu virus. It's a flu virus. It's a strand that's being blown out of proportion so people can get everybody to look at the shiny object while this other agenda is kind of rolling in under the back door. And that's honestly, my opinion. I feel bad for the families. Like, God bless you if you passed away, and if you legitimately passed away of COVID, because you and I know with the test and the faulty test, and I'm sure you've heard that cases are being marked COVID that weren't really COVID, and the CDC
Mm.
said that. I mean, I feel bad for a lot of people because, heck, how can you really trust anything? Right? I mean, if you don't have common sense and critical thinking, you're kind of like, man, let me just throw all the cards in the air. I don't know what to do, right?
Right,
So
right. Well, it's very politicized in that it's controversial to call it a flu, you know.
yeah,
And there are certain drugs that I can't even mention the name of because I'll lose my YouTube channel. And you know which
yeah,
drug I'm talking about.
I totally
That's
do.
being used in countries all over the world very effectively. It's been around
In
since the
tonic water,
50s.
part of it is.
Excuse
Yeah.
me? Yeah,
A
perfectly
part of
safe.
it is in tonic water, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You find it naturally occurs in tonic water. It goes way back. It's a legacy drug.
Yeah.
And it's been used in France. It's been used in Italy. It's been used in Israel. It's been used in Taiwan. And it's being used in Central American countries very
Yeah.
successfully and even over the counter. But in this country, if you mention the name of this drug, if I do, I could lose my YouTube channel. I mean,
Great.
to me, this is tells us everything we need to know about how the left wing is censoring any opinions that don't agree with theirs and how they operate in a very thuggish manner.
Yeah.
So you're on the street, I'm on the street, you're beginning to, people are, I think, starting to get this message. I think we could peel off a couple of percentage points of people who might wake up to this fact. that
Yeah,
this is a serious disease. However, people who are vulnerable not people who are vulnerable ought to shelter or
yeah,
have masks, and
100%.
governments ought to protect people who are vulnerable instead of doing what Andrew Cuomo did, which was put COVID-19 positive people in nursing homes.
Crazy.
I'd like to see the statistics on what percentage of people who died were in nursing homes. I mean, talk about immoral actions on the
Totally
part of
agree.
governments. It just brings up some big questions about how the government actually is functioning and why. And those are philosophical questions. Those are, again, I don't want to get into the issue of conspiracy here and put on a
Yeah.
tin hat, but I do think that there is an element by which political benefits can be achieved by hurting the economy and by keeping people in a state of martial law, literally, for as
Well,
long
and
as
Charles,
possible.
I think we could say too that and I don't want anybody to think I'm a tinfoil hat guy either. But it there's an air of impropriety here. So like it doesn't pass the sniff test. Like all of it, the whole thing since it started, right? Now, do we know for certain A, B, C, or D is true? No, we don't. But we know there's an air of impropriety. There's things that have happened. Like I think I saw you might have this stat, but in New York for every respirator or kind of COVID protocol they do, right? I think Como is getting like $40,000. Gavin Newsom's getting 3,000 for every a COVID case, right?
Oh
The
yeah,
state
I mean,
government,
there have been people in the coroners. There are several around the country who are blowing the whistle on this in hospitals who have said that it's the first time in their many decades of working in that industry that they're being told by their hospitals that they have to label certain deaths as resulting from COVID, even though these people have not been tested for it, and even though traditionally that's a decision made by the coroner about the cause of death, and that the hospital gets money for every
yeah,
case that they report. So it does bring up some rather thorny questions about motivation here. Again, I'm not discounting the seriousness of the disease. I'm
right,
not running around, frankly, outside without a mask, and I am at risk. But
yeah,
it's a matter of choice, and I think that
100%.
the idea of keeping children home from school. I mean, the only positive thing in that, and I talked about this yesterday with Alex Newman. You should reach him; he's amazing. And
I
we
would,
talked about homeschooling and education. He said homeschooling is booming. Millions of people are going to be homeschooling their children. This
which
is
I think that's great, by the way.
it is. I mean, this is a real blow to this whole rotten public school establishment. I mean, my friend, the late great Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld, who wrote whole shelves of books on this topic. I wish he was here to see this. It's actually one of the few silver linings in this whole debacle. In that and that young people are going to really get genuine education. They're going to learn phonics. They're going to learn how to read. It's going to result in a new generation of young people coming up who know how to think cognitively and who know how to think for themselves. I just don't know if it's the kind of thing that isn't going to happen overnight, and we have a crisis right now politically, so that's a worry.
Yeah, and I think too the great thing about that from a political standpoint is that's going to take away one of those megaphones, right? If we get a staunch group of just mothers and moms and dads, one, we're going to be able to reestablish that family unit. So I didn't think about that, Charles. I really appreciate you mentioning that, because that's a really good thing that I think we all can kind of celebrate in all this amidst all the craziness, right? Celebrate the fact that our kids are going to be able to be influenced by us, instead of in San Diego County where they're talking about oral sex and anal sex in fifth grade and exposing our children to that. We can like expose our children to those core like conservative values and patriotism and why the flag is so important and stuff like that, right? and
Yeah,
and so
it's
if
their
we
undoing.
take,
I mean, it's like there are certain positive backlashes to this, and also people
yeah,
are more self-sufficient. When you realize the government is not going to protect you in the case of a national crisis, so you stock up on extra food and water, and gun sales are going through the roof. I mean, you basically realize that as a family unit, and the family is the most sovereign and stable unit in nature, that you have to take care of yourself first. And so these are all things that are I mean, anytime there's a big national crisis, whether it be a war or a depression or anything else, there are changes to society, and these are
Yeah.
changes that are positive. So we need to, I think, amplify those and make people aware of the fact that that's a positive direction.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I totally agree. And, you know, there's so many positives to that point that have come out of COVID, right? And I do agree with that. It's kind of like from a I remember my grandmother, she was around during the Depression. I mean, this is a woman that literally she would reuse a paper towel, like, right? Like she would wipe
Oh
a
yeah, my
serving.
grandmother too. She used to
Yeah,
have in her cupboard. She had cans of tuna fish and peanut butter.
yeah,
When the Ruskies came and they dropped the nuclear bomb, she'd be ready. So
crazy, right? And so we're trying to we're basically getting back to that and like making do. And I mean that's the brilliant thing about this. And I just want to reiterate that my heart goes out to people that have lost someone to COVID, and I definitely think the virus is real too. I just think the reaction, the way we're reacting about it and shutting down the economy. I mean, I can't tell you how many friends that I've had that have literally like business they had for 25 years. I mean,
oh,
it's
it's
just gone.
horrible.
Yeah. And like, what are they going to do, Charles? Like, what are you going to do if you're 65 years old and you just lost your retirement? You lost your savings, you lost your business. I mean, where do you go from there? Right. I mean, I'm
And can
40.
you
Something
imagine?
happened
I know
to me.
what you mean, but can you imagine the immorality of that if that is what's happening? I mean, that they would deliberately wipe out an entire area of industry and business in this country just for political gain. I mean, now I'm not saying that's happening,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
policies could have been conducted in a way that would have at least come down a little softly on these businesses. I mean, what's happening is that the big billion trillion businesses like Amazon are the ones who are consolidating because your mom and pop bookstore can't make it. They're shut down by order of the state. So you have to go online and go through Amazon. So in a way, the same thing happened during the Great Depression. The smaller, mid level, and smaller type businesses were wiped out. The big players then came in and bought them all up at a bargain price. I mean, it's
Great.
the same dynamic here. It hasn't happened yet like that, and hopefully it won't. But, if something isn't done to kickstart the economy and get people back out there, then it could have a much more devastating effect.
Yeah, I don't think that I was telling a friend this last night. I don't think we've truly seen the impact of the economy. Like what just shutting things down and then because from my standpoint in my industry, people are scared. Like there are people that, especially in California, there's a group of people that literally, and I'm sure you've seen them across the country, where people literally they won't touch you, they get away from you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like people are scared to buy, people are scared to go out. And I don't think we yet know in the first quarter of next year or the last quarter of this year or the second quarter of next year what the impact of that's going to be, shutting it down and then closing it again, opening it, partially closing. I mean, people are just kind of faked out. So as a buyer and as a business owner, you don't really know what to do. You don't know when the other shoe's going to drop. And I think that, I mean, I pray to God that doesn't, the impact of that doesn't happen until after November 3rd, right? Because,
Well,
I don't
that's,
know
yeah.
how many people are making that decision based upon the economy, because you can't blame Trump for this. You really can't.
No, but of course, that's the big joke that's making the rounds. This whole thing will be over the day after the election if Trump loses.
Yeah.
It'll be like a
I mean, I
switch went
believe
off.
that too. I mean,
But
I believe that too.
California, particularly Southern California, Los Angeles, I mean, they're in the business of entertainment. They've got the movie business. You've got billionaires who are involved in that. You've got a whole industry connected to that. And they're the ones who are getting a major hit from this. I mean, they can't produce movies. They can't produce TV
Yeah.
shows. Why aren't they up in arms about this? Why aren't they? They should be reaching out to you and your group. I would think.
I thought about that actually. It's very interesting. And I don't, um, how big are your pockets, right? I mean, I think that's what this comes down to, right?
Right.
If they're not feeling the squeeze yet, then of course, no big deal. we'll just let it happen. It's kind of like when Madonna, was it Madonna? I don't know who it was that was supporting sanctuary cities.
Mm.
And I heard somebody say, and I felt the same way. Well, why don't you just bring all of them, bring all the
Bring it to
homeless
your
into your
mansion. Yeah.
community? Yeah, exactly. Have them come live with you, right?
Take your wall down around
Yeah,
your house. Tell
right.
that to
Exactly.
like David Geffen and these guys. Tear down that wall.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
so funny.
instead of they don't want it to protect the nation, but the idiocy of that is astonishing, and especially I would think places like San Diego and Los Angeles, being border areas near the
Oh,
border.
oh, Joy
But
Villa.
yet there's like a major disconnect. It's
Yeah,
almost like I don't know how to explain it. It's almost a form of insanity.
yeah. Well, I was in even Austin, Texas, and then we had Joy Villa on my town hall last night for the recall Newsom effort, and between going to Austin, Texas, being in Sacramento this past weekend, and then seeing Joy's video in Los Angeles of the homeless. I mean, we have a crisis in this country of sanctuary cities, homeless people, and Newsom just released another 8,000 prisoners the other day. It's like
It's
the
insane.
only thing, it's just illogical, right? I mean, it just makes no sense. It's fascinating to me.
Did they at least check them for the virus before releasing them?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question. This is supposedly, my understanding is that this is a prevention tool to prevent the prison population from passing the virus to each other. I mean, I don't know. I don't even understand. It's
Yeah, I
laughable.
mean,
Doesn't
already
make
in New York City, I mean, gun crime is up by 700%. And we're talking about not legal guns here. We're talking about street criminals who have been released from prisons. So, yeah, I mean, that's plaguing big cities. Of course, you had the death of George Floyd, which probably may have or may not have been racially motivated. That's something that information is coming out that would indicate otherwise it will come out in the trial, but it resulted in a triggering of these communist inspired cells burning black neighborhoods, looting black businesses, killing black people across the country. And the increase in crime in major cities like Chicago and St. Louis targets predominantly black people, including 3 children in Chicago. And yet we're supposed to think that somehow not supporting these radical communistic groups means that we got something against black people. How do you explain that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and I don't know if you saw the body cam footage at all. It's funny when
Mm-hmm.
when that idiot Colin Kaepernick started kneeling for the national anthem and saying that it didn't mean anything, that he wasn't alienating an entire group of veterans by doing that. And then the NFL, I mean, it's funny, this cancel culture and acceptance of people not taking a stand with what they know to be ethically and morally right because of political or financial pressure. I mean, it's disgusting and despicable because there's guys at Arlington right now that are 6 feet under, and those are souls that can't stand for themselves, that stood for you and I. And it's disgusting that 17,046 bodies came home in the last 10 years in flag draped coffins, and 17,046 times that triangular flag with 5 stars at the bottom that's all blue, that symbolizes a veteran is dead, was handed to a wife or a sister or a loved one. And it's disgusting to me that uninformed, spoiled idiots that play football and basketball want to disrespect the people that are the reason why they can play that sport. It's
Oh, it is. It
despicable.
is. Americans should never kneel to anything. We, as a Jew, I will never kneel to anything. I mean, the Bible tells me in the book of Esther that when Mordecai was asked to kneel to Haman, he refused. That's what set off that whole chain of events because he
Yeah.
said, I don't kneel to anyone but God. I don't kneel to secular
Wow.
authorities. Jesus refused to kneel to Pontius Pilate and he was crucified. So
Yeah.
we should not kneel to anyone under any circumstances, I suppose, unless they put a gun to your head. But just in general, do not kneel. It's wrong.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
But that makes a lot of sense. I like that. I'm gonna use that if you don't mind.
absolutely. President Trump is using it after I tweeted it to him.
Oh wow, I love that.
So
Praise
yeah, I
God.
mean, we need to be informed about these things. There's some very basic elements to being an American and standing up as such, and they have nothing to do with Democrat or Republican, left or right. Frankly, it's just a basic. It's that
Yeah,
we stand as sovereign citizens under God. We're not subjects.
yeah,
That's the divine right of kings. We got rid of King George III for that reason. We're not, rights don't come from a king, they come from God. And
yeah.
then we give a limited grant of rights to a government to protect those rights, not create them. The rights are self evident, like Jefferson said. They just exist, they were created by God. We give government a certain amount of responsibility to protect, defend those rights. They don't make rights. I mean, people need to understand that.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, yeah. Those rights are from our creator for sure.
Yeah.
And we don't, and I think I agree with you about something you said a second ago. It's like, my organization is all about choice. When we kicked this thing off and that video got about 15 million hits and it went viral, we were just kind of like, if people want to quarantine, great, but they should have the choice to do that. If you want to wear a mask, great.
Yeah,
You should have the choice to
exactly.
do that. If you want to take a vaccine, great. You should have the choice to do that. But government shouldn't tell me that I have to do that to myself, my child, and that I can't, if I don't do that, that I can't travel. I mean, it's like despicable what's happening with the airlines now. Like
Oh yeah.
literally, if you have an American Disabilities Act letter from a doctor, if you have a letter that says you have a respiratory condition, they are forcing you. They are basically saying the Constitution doesn't matter. You still have to wear a mask. And the lawsuits, I can't wait till they start coming raining down, Charles, because it's crazy. Like there are so many OSHA federal policies that are being violated right now because OSHA says that the actual mask, not the N95, but the actual just surgical mask that a lot of folks are wearing and that businesses are passing out, you have to be properly fitted for that. There's a 40 question questionnaire that OSHA puts out. And there are probably like 10 things that if you've ever had those 10 things happen in your lifetime, you're exempt from wearing a mask. And from a health perspective, it's harmful for you to wear a mask if you have things like you've ever had a respiratory condition in your life, you've ever smoked in your life, you've ever had diabetes in your life, you've ever had allergies in your life, you've ever had a concussion in your life. Like there's literally like 10 of them. And then those masks are only for one use. The cloth masks have to be rewashed. There's so many different things. When I did the research, I did a live about a week ago. It got about 26,000 hits so far. And literally, I'm just outlining this, and people are like, "Thank you, doc." Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was the case. And so there's such a lack of information there. But then people, it's the wild, wild west. Because places you've been into, people are giving these very loose guidelines about this or that, and then if somebody's a liberal or conservative, they're kind of making a decision, right? So if I get
Hmm.
somebody that's conservative, they're going to be really loose about the mask law. This is just what I've seen, like over and over again, different places. If
Oh,
I
it
get
is. I
somebody
mean,
that's a liberal, it's going to be a tough go. Go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
I've seen that play out as well. Even in my own
Yeah.
family, I've seen that play out. And
Interesting.
and I also would point out that I've heard, and I'm not a doctor, but that there are some medical problems with covering up, using the mask. You're re-inhaling carbon monoxide,
CO2.
dioxide. I mean,
Yeah.
CO2, and that has problems as well. And this craziness of telling people they have to wear masks in a gym. You can't work out with a mask. You need to breathe a lot if you're exercising. You need a lot of oxygen. People are going to pass out. They're going to get sick from that.
Well, a
And
Turkish study came out and said it causes long-term lung tissue damage. And then I know you've heard about the people that were wearing them in the car. I know it happened once
that's
in Jersey,
insane.
once in New York, and they ran into a tree, one lady, and she died. How many other stories are going on like that that they're not talking about?
That's right. So, you have to be, as the old saying goes, a wise consumer. Evaluate these things for yourself, think about them, and put your own self interest and that of your family first.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Cordie Williams, let my listeners and viewers know where they can read your work and view your videos and more information
Yeah.
about you, and also promote the event that you're coming up on.
All right, absolutely, Charles. Thank you. So
Welcome.
1776 Forever Free is my movement, and the movement of my partner, my business partner, Chris Lippy. We were doing rallies. We were doing rallies all over California. Now we're going on a national stage. We're going to be in Missouri. We're going to be in Florida, working out permits in Colorado. Either Sacramento or Huntington will be in, and then DC. And what we need from you guys is just support. If you can't come to a rally, you can't donate your time, donate your money, whether it's $2, $3, whether you want to buy a $29 t-shirt, because the t-shirt's pretty cool. We've got like I guess the women, they call them racebacks or razorback tank tops. I don't know. It's the cutesy things that they wear. But this really identifies yourself as people like Charles and I, and like many of you, that we're freedom fighters. We want our country back. We don't want our country to go towards socialism. And this is kind of a way of getting people to think. It creates a conversation. I can't tell you how many people tell me, Charles, are like, God bless you. Like, what are you about? I love that shirt. Like, they say that over and over again. So just check us out at 1776foreverfree.com. We have a private Facebook group. I don't know why I can't get that out.
Mhm.
I'm Dr. Cordie Williams. You can find me on Facebook, multiple places, public figure page. We got websites, all sorts of stuff. And Charles, I really, really appreciate everything you're doing for the country, and really appreciate you having me on today.
Thank you, Cordie. And I want to donate my time on this program to your cause. You're welcome anytime, as
Wow.
are people associated with your group. If you see anyone that wants to do a YouTube, let them know about this. And I
Yes,
hope
sir.
to follow you very carefully as things develop. So thanks for joining me, and take care.
Yes, sir. God bless you. Semper Fi.
Thank you.